Spending nearly 4 decades inhabiting one character can reshape a life in ways few people ever experience. For Anthony Geary, forever associated with General Hospital's Luke Spencer, fame arrived not as a sudden burst, but as a steady tide that eventually became impossible to ignore. Luke grew from a supporting role into a cultural force, and with that success came admiration, opportunity, and pressure in equal measure. While audiences saw confidence and charisma, Anthony often experienced fame as something heavier, a constant presence that made ordinary moments harder to protect. He was never drawn to the spotlight for its own sake, preferring the quiet discipline of acting to red carpets and attention. Luke Spencer opened doors across television, but he also narrowed public perception, binding actor and character together. Over time, Anthony learned that recognition can be both empowering and restrictive, offering creative fulfillment while quietly limiting personal freedom. Roots in a small town. Anthony Geary was born in 1947 and raised far from Hollywood in a modest Utah community where life moved at a slower pace. Surrounded by open land and close-knit neighbors, he grew up with values shaped by simplicity, responsibility, and perseverance. His father worked in construction, building a livelihood through steady effort, while his mother provided emotional grounding and encouragement. Their influence instilled discipline and empathy, qualities that later became central to Anthony's acting. As a child, he was observant and thoughtful, more inclined to study people than chase attention. He found himself fascinated by films, not just as entertainment, but as windows into human behavior. He kept notes on performances and stories, quietly training his eye for detail. Even then, Anthony sensed that storytelling held meaning beyond applause, planting the earliest seeds of a career driven less by fame and more by understanding character. Discovering a love for performance school offered Anthony his first real stage, and it quickly became clear where he felt most at home. While academic subjects sometimes felt distant, theater provided purpose and direction. He approached every role with seriousness, studying motivations and emotional beats long before he learned formal technique. Teachers noticed his commitment, and classmates sensed his natural presence. A drama scholarship to the University of Utah marked a turning point, opening the door to professional training and a wider world. For Anthony, this wasn't simply an educational opportunity. It was a declaration that storytelling would be his path. University life sharpened his instincts and introduced him to the discipline required of working actors. He immersed himself in rehearsals, welcomed critique, and learned to sit with uncomfortable emotions on stage. These years laid the foundation for a career defined by depth rather than surface charm. Learning on the stage before television ever called, Anthony earned his craft in live theater, where mistakes can't be edited and every performance demands full presence. Stage work taught him precision, stamina, and emotional honesty. He learned how to listen to scene partners, how to pace a moment, and how to hold silence when words weren't enough. His dedication was recognized with prestigious scholarships and awards, affirming his choice to pursue acting seriously. A defining moment arrived when veteran actor Jack Albertson worked with him on a university production and later invited Anthony to tour professionally. Accepting meant leaving familiar surroundings for uncertainty. But Anthony understood that growth required risk. Touring exposed him to diverse audiences and demanding schedules, reinforcing resilience and adaptability. Theater became his classroom, shaping a performer who valued truth over theatrics and preparation over shortcuts, qualities that would later distinguish him on screen. Becoming Luke Spencer, Anthony joined General Hospital in 1978, initially for a limited run, but Luke Spencer quickly grew beyond expectations. Anthony infused the character with layers of pain, humor, defiance, and longing, refusing to smooth over Luke's rough edges. Viewers responded to that honesty. Luke wasn't a traditional hero. He was complicated, shaped by difficult experiences and searching for redemption. Anthony leaned into those contradictions, showing how vulnerability and strength can coexist. His performance invited audiences to look past surface behavior and consider inner struggle. What might have remained a supporting role evolved into the heart of the show, driven by Anthony's commitment to emotional truth. Luke Spencer became a mirror for imperfect humanity, and that realism resonated deeply. Through careful choices and fearless acting, Anthony transformed Luke into one of daytime television's most enduring figures. A Wedding That Changed. Daytime TV. The on-screen romance between Luke Spencer and Laura Weber captured imaginations across the country, culminating in a 1981 wedding episode watched by tens of millions. It became a defining cultural moment, drawing unprecedented attention to daytime television. For viewers, it was romance and celebration. For Anthony, it marked a new level of visibility. Suddenly, Luke Spencer was everywhere, from magazine covers to mainstream news. Yet beneath the excitement, Anthony remained focused on craft. He understood that the popularity came from emotional investment built over time, not spectacle alone. The success of Luke and Laura proved that audiences were hungry for layered storytelling, even in formats often underestimated. While the event elevated his career, it also intensified public association with the character. Anthony accepted the responsibility with grace, continuing to prioritize performance over celebrity, even as his life grew increasingly public. Recognition and record-breaking success. Over the years, Anthony's work earned widespread respect, including multiple Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Lead Actor, a rare achievement that reflected decades of consistency. These honors acknowledged not only talent, but endurance, the ability to stay creatively engaged across thousands of episodes. By the time he stepped away from General Hospital, he had appeared in well over 1,000 installments, shaping Luke Spencer through changing eras of television. Awards mattered, but Anthony viewed them as byproducts of commitment rather than goals. What drove him was the daily discipline of rehearsal, script study, and emotional availability. Still, the recognition confirmed his impact on the genre. He helped redefine what daytime performances could be, proving that long-form storytelling allows space for growth, contradiction, and evolution. His career became a benchmark for actors who followed, demonstrating that depth and longevity can coexist. The weight of typecasting success, however, came with limitations. As Luke Spencer grew more iconic, opportunities outside General Hospital became harder to access. Casting directors and audiences alike struggled to see Anthony beyond the character. He spoke openly about feeling boxed in, grateful for Luke, yet aware of how tightly the role shaped his professional identity. This is a challenge many long-running television actors face, where familiarity can quietly replace curiosity. Anthony navigated that tension with honesty, acknowledging both appreciation and frustration. Rather than resist Luke's legacy, he chose to honor it while protecting his sense of self. He continued to explore writing and other creative interests privately, reminding himself that an actor's worth isn't defined by a single role, no matter how beloved. His journey illustrates how success can narrow choices even as it expands recognition. Guarding a private life. Despite immense public visibility, Anthony remained deeply protective of his personal world. He avoided unnecessary publicity and rarely discussed life beyond his work. While fans were naturally curious, he believed some boundaries were essential for balance. Home, relationships, and quiet routines were kept separate from professional identity, allowing him to recharge away from cameras. Colleagues often described him as thoughtful and reserved, someone who valued meaningful conversation over small talk. This privacy wasn't secrecy, it was self-preservation. Anthony understood that constant exposure can erode perspective, so he built a life anchored in books, reflection, and close friendships. By choosing discretion, he maintained a sense of normalcy in an otherwise extraordinary career. His example reminds us that visibility doesn't require surrendering every part of oneself, and that protecting inner life can be an act of strength. Professional partnerships on set. Anthony's working relationships were shaped by respect for the craft. His partnership with Geary Francis, who portrayed Laura, produced some of daytime television's most memorable moments, even though they maintained professional distance off-screen. They approached difficult storylines with seriousness, sometimes disagreeing, always focused on serving the characters. Over time, mutual respect replaced early tensions, especially after Anthony left the show, and both reflected on what they had created together. On set, Anthony was known for preparation and intensity, often arriving with detailed thoughts about scenes. He valued collaboration but also trusted instinct, pushing for emotional truth even when it challenged convention. These dynamics contributed to performances that felt lived in rather than manufactured. For Anthony, acting was never about personal spotlight. It was about honoring story, partner, and audience through disciplined work, physical challenges, and a difficult decision. As the years progressed, the physical demands of daily television began to take their toll. Anthony faced serious back issues that made long shooting days increasingly painful. Surgery and rehabilitation became part of his routine, forcing him to reassess priorities. Continuing as Luke Spencer required strength, he could no longer summon without sacrifice. Choosing to step away was not a rejection of the role, but an acknowledgement of personal limits. In 2015, he left General Hospital quietly, allowing the character to rest with dignity. It was a moment of transition, closing a chapter that had defined nearly 4 decades. Anthony approached this decision with the same thoughtfulness that guided his career, understanding that honoring one's health is as important as honoring one's work. A new rhythm of life. After leaving the show, Anthony embraced a slower, more intentional pace, eventually settling in Amsterdam. Far from studio schedules and production meetings, he rediscovered everyday pleasures, cooking, reading, writing, and long walks through historic streets. Life became less about deadlines and more about presence. He continued to engage creatively, drafting scripts and exploring ideas without pressure to produce. Companionship, quiet routines, and intellectual curiosity replaced the relentless rhythm of television. This chapter offered something he had long protected but rarely enjoyed fully: anonymity. In a city where he could simply be another resident, Anthony found space to reflect on decades of work and growth. His post-television life illustrates that fulfillment doesn't end with retirement. It simply changes shape, opening room for stillness and personal exploration. Redefining success. Anthony Geary's journey challenges conventional definitions of achievement. While awards and fame marked his career, he ultimately measured success by integrity and balance. He showed that dedication to craft matters more than constant visibility, and that stepping away can be as courageous as staying. By choosing privacy and simplicity after years in the public eye, he demonstrated a different kind of strength, one rooted in self-awareness. His story reminds us that careers evolve, identities shift, and it's possible to honor past accomplishments while embracing new priorities. Anthony never chased headlines, he chased truth in performance. That commitment shaped everything from Luke Spencer's complexity to his own quiet retirement. In an industry often driven by exposure, his path stands as a reminder that fulfillment is deeply personal and rarely loud. Influence on daytime storytelling. Anthony's impact on television extends far beyond a single character. Through Luke Spencer, he helped introduce moral ambiguity and emotional realism to daytime drama, paving the way for more nuanced storytelling. He proved audiences could connect with flawed protagonists when portrayed with honesty. Writers and actors alike drew inspiration from his willingness to explore vulnerability, anger, humor, and regret within the same character. His performances expanded what was possible in serialized television, encouraging deeper character arcs and long-term development. Today, traces of Luke Spencer can be seen in many complex figures across the genre. Anthony didn't just play a role, he shifted expectations, showing that daytime stories could carry weight, consequence, and authenticity. That legacy continues to influence how characters are written and performed. Lessons from a long career. Looking back, Anthony Geary's career offers powerful lessons about patience, resilience, and self-respect. He built success slowly, grounded in preparation and emotional honesty. He navigated fame without letting it consume his private world. He listened to his body when it asked for rest. And he walked away when it was time, trusting that life beyond the camera held value too. His story encourages artists to honor their limits and audiences, to see performers as whole people, not just characters. Through decades of work, Anthony showed that consistency can be as impactful as spectacle, and that quiet choices often shape the most meaningful outcomes. His journey reflects a life lived with intention, guided by curiosity rather than applause. A legacy beyond. Luke Spencer. Though Luke Spencer remains iconic, Anthony Geary's true legacy lies in the humanity he brought to every performance. He reminded viewers that people are complicated, capable of growth, and worthy of empathy, even when they stumble. He elevated daytime television through disciplined craft and emotional courage. Today, as he lives away from the spotlight, his influence endures in reruns, in inspired actors, and in storytelling that dares to explore complexity. Anthony's life demonstrates that achievement isn't only about being seen, it's about doing meaningful work and knowing when to turn toward quieter joys. His journey stands as a testament to authenticity, resilience, and the power of choosing one's own path. Conclusion. Anthony Geary gave nearly 40 years to a character who became part of television history, yet he never allowed that role to define his entire life. From small-town beginnings to record-setting success, he navigated fame with humility and purpose. By stepping away when the time felt right, he showed that endings can be graceful and beginnings can arrive at any age. His story invites reflection on what truly matters: dedication to craft, respect for self, and the courage to live authentically. For fans, Luke Spencer will always hold a special place. For Anthony, the greater achievement was building a life that balanced passion with peace. In that quiet victory, his most meaningful legacy continues.